from worship. Then we moved on to tawakkul, reliance. We touched upon it briefly in the last lesson, so we're going to start off today's lesson, inshallah, from where we left off, which is just really summarizing or finishing off our discussion of tawakkul. And we explained that tawakkul comprises really of three things. The first of them is that a person, he adopts the ways and the means. So for everything, Allah has created and put within this creation certain ways and means. Like, for example, if you want something to eat on your table, then you have to work for it. So work is the ways and means of receiving sustenance. And likewise, so we have things which are in the Sharia, like, for example, if you want forgiveness from Allah, then you make istighfar. Or if you want to get to paradise, then you establish the prayer and you establish the pillars. So these are the Sharia ways and means by which you achieve certain objectives. These are the Sharia asbab. And then in the worldly sense, there are other things which Allah has made certain causes and their effects. He's made certain ways and means in the worldly sense, which relate to the creation. Like as we said, that if that by working you achieve sustenance, and many other similar things like this. So tawakkul is that you adopt the ways and the means. You take the ways and the means. This is the first element. Secondly, once you've taken the ways and means, then in your heart you leave the affair to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sense that your sole attachment now becomes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after having taken all the ways and the means. And thirdly, once you've acted upon the asbab and you've left the affair in your heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then thirdly, you don't look back at the asbab, at the ways and means that you've adopted. The easiest way to explain this is by way of an example, so you can see how each of these three things apply. And the most common example given by the scholars is usually as follows. That imagine a person who is going to set out on a journey. So the first thing is that he implements all of the asbab, the ways and means. So when you get out in your car, you check the tires, you check the water, you check the fuel, you check the indicators are working. When you get in the car, you make sure that you put the seat belts on, you have a child safety seat, and so on and so forth. So in other words, you've taken all the ways and means that you can take to make sure that your journey, that you will be safe in the car, and that you arrive at the destination safely. So this is what we call adopting the ways and the means, the asbab. That's the first thing. Second thing is that once you have taken all the ways and means, you then in your heart, you entrust your safety entirely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now the attachment of your heart now is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to the ways and means. Right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of the ways and the means. So therefore, even though you have acted upon the ways and the means, your heart then becomes attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then thirdly, once you've made this tawakkul in your heart, which literally means to make tafweed, which means to relegate the affair to Allah, then thirdly, you don't look back and think that because I fastened my seatbelt, and because I've checked the tires, and because I've taken all these measures, therefore I will be safe. In other words, you don't look back at the asbab. You don't look at the asbab. Right? So this is the third thing. In other words, you're not making it as if the asbab, the ways and means, are the things that directly impact you being safe. Because that's not the case. Because there could be, for example, you might have taken all the ways and means, but some other person driving could just as well just come and bang into you. Something which you didn't expect. And that's because it's in Allah's control. So the asbab in and of themselves do not necessarily guarantee what follows on from them, because that is something which Allah determines. So three things. You take the asbab, you then leave the affair to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and thirdly, you never look back and start looking at the ways and means. In other words, to depend upon the ways and means in and of themselves. This is incorrect. And so therefore, from this example, you can see that a person who truly makes tawakkul has to have all of these three elements. And this is why from the Salaf, there's a well-known statement that you will see repeated in the books of Aqidah, and they say, al-iltifat anil asbab qadhun fit tawakkul. So it means that to turn away from the ways and means, meaning to not act upon the ways and means, is a deficiency, or if you like, is a revilement or a deficiency upon tawakkul. Meaning, if a person was to jump in a car and say, well, I'm not going to fasten the seatbelt because I'm going to rely upon Allah, or this is not tawakkul, because this is not from the reality of tawakkul. You haven't taken the ways and means. To take the ways and means is from tawakkul. So to turn away, al-iltifat anil asbab qadhun fit tawakkul, that to turn away from the ways and means is a revilement upon tawakkul itself. Secondly, al-iltifat ila al-asbab qadhun fit tawheed. Secondly, to turn to the asbab is a revilement upon tawheed. In other words, to treat the asbab, to treat the ways and means, as in, for example, to say that I fastened my seatbelt, I've taken all the ways and means, so therefore now I will be safe. Right? It is as if your reliance is upon the ways and means in and of themselves. This is what it means to turn to the asbab. That this is a revilement upon tawheed. So the first, to turn away from the asbab, is a revilement upon tawakkul, and secondly, to turn to them exclusively is a revilement upon tawheed. And thirdly, وَمَحْوُ الْأَسْبَابِ أَن تَكُونَ أَسْبَابًا قَدْهٌ فِي الْعَقْلِ. And the third one is that to remove the ways and means from being ways and means. In other words, in our example, to say, for example, that putting on a seatbelt and checking the tires and the pressure and everything else, that this is not really connected to safety and whatever. Right? To remove the ways and means from their effects, this then is a deficiency in the intellect. It's a revilement upon the intellect, because from our belief is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed within this creation causes and effects. So things have like intrinsic properties, like the fire burns. The fire always burns. So Allah has created these ways and means within the creation. So to deny that is a deficiency in intellect. So this is something reported from the Salaf regarding tawakkul. And so for this reason we say that true tawakkul comprises of all of these things. Number one, to take the ways and means. Number two, to leave the affair to Allah. And thirdly, not to then look back upon the ways and means and think that they independently will lead to the result. So this is tawakkul. And then what is the evidence? Because remember, we are looking at the evidences. What is the evidence that an action is ibadah? What is the proof? And the proof in the Quran is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. That upon Allah place your trust or place your reliance if indeed you are believers. So here we see in this verse is a command. Allah has commanded, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتَوَكَّلُوا. So because it is a command, then we know that Allah would never command something unless He is pleased with it or He loves it. And so because He's commanded it, we know that Allah loves it and is pleased with it. Therefore it comes under the definition that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah gave, that ibadah is a comprehensive term which gathers together everything that Allah loves and is pleased with. So therefore this is a proof that tawakkul is from ibadah. And also connected to this is in another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in fact, this is a verse that tawakkul is from ibadah, but there's also a proof to show that tawakkul should only be restricted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is because in this verse, Allah says, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتَوَكَّلُوا. Allah, He delayed the verb and He brought back. So in other words, He delayed the verb and He brought forward the noun. So what this means is, in English, if I was to translate this verse, it means, and upon Allah place your trust. In the normal course of language, you would normally say, فَتَوَكَّلُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ. Place your trust upon Allah. But here the order has been reversed. the verb has been delayed, and the noun here, in this case Allah, has been brought forward. So upon Allah place your trust. And what this provides in the Arabic language, linguistically, what this means when this is done in the Arabic language, it means, literally means, restrict your reliance upon Allah alone. It gives the meaning of restricting something. And also we can understand this in English as well. This is also found in English when, if we said, for example, with the same example, place your trust upon Allah, right? This is mentioning the verb first, but if you did it the other way around, upon Allah you should place your trust, then you can see there's an emphasis and a restriction. So even in other languages we see the same thing. So in Arabic, because Allah has delayed the verb, then this is a proof to show that tawakkul, because tawakkul is an action of the heart, then it is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is a proof that it should be directed only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another verse, Allah makes it a condition of faith. Allah says, فَتَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنْتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Place your reliance upon Allah if indeed you are believers. And in another verse, Allah says, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. That whoever places his reliance upon Allah, then Allah will suffice him. And in this verse, this is a praise of whoever makes their reliance upon Allah. Here Allah has praised the person because Allah has said, whoever relies upon Allah, Allah is sufficient for him. And this is a praise. And so, if you remember, we said that whenever Allah praises a person or an action, this is a proof that it is from worship. So from this discussion, what is important for us to understand is look at the ways in which we establish and find evidence that such and such a thing is from ibadah and it enters into the definition of ibadah. Here the Shaykh has given a number of examples with respect to tawakkul specifically. Firstly, Allah commands tawakkul. Secondly, Allah has praised those who rely upon Him. And thirdly, Allah has restricted tawakkul to Himself in the way in which the verse has been worded. So all of this establishes that tawakkul is from ibadah and it is due only to Allah